Alright, so you probably saw earlier that the so-called dash of this cart was just an absolute mangled mess. And as you can see, it's just one big hole, and they had the throttle cable taped and this all taped up here with electrical tape. And we've got 3 buttons. I can only think that one is forward, one is reverse, and one is the lights, because this is just a standard ignition switch turn on. So what I did, I had a old wire storehouse plastic unit that had kind of the nice angle that I wanted. It was much taller. I cut it down once, took the top off. It was still too tall. I cut it down again, and then I have some extra, just metal lying around. And then I cut out a piece that I wanted, molded it real quick how I wanted it to fit on here, and then drilled a couple holes, 4 holes in it, so I could screw it in from the back of the original holes that were on this plastic. And now what I need to do is finish taking these metal flanges off, so it's one smooth hole all the way down. Figure out where I need to cut my hole saw cut into this, so that this will slide straight down onto there, and then I can just screw this into the plastic here, kind of give it at least some sort of dugout. Key switch, I will end up putting a hole saw cut right probably here, put the ignition switch in. The choke, what I'll end up doing is I'm going to have to make it, because this won't come off, I can't get the knob off, but I'm probably going to have to just cut a hole as big as the knob, and then make like a little shim, like a round piece that goes behind this, just with a hole big enough for this. And then when I get that in place, slide that shim down and then tighten it down against the metal. That'll hold it in place nice, and won't have to worry about it. Gotta figure out what I'm gonna do about these. I won't cut holes for these till after. More than likely what I'll do is I'll end up having them off here on the left hand side, and only use the forward and the light, because like I said, it's not going to have reverse, and if down the road it ends up reverse and it requires something different, then I will go ahead and use the third one. But for now, what I'm likely going to do is just cut holes for these to go into, run the wires into it, and then at least have them in here and in place, and get them wired up. So I'm going to keep working on getting that housing done, and then once it's all pretty much where I want it, I will paint it real quick, and then fasten it to the cart, and at least clean up this mess in this hole. It just looks like crap, and it'd be nice to have something a little better. She isn't perfect, and actually right now you can see the top is pulled up a little bit because I have the choke cable coming out the slot right here, like this slot on here on the other side. But I think it's going to work out good. Now the choke is going to go, I'm going to assume I'm going to have to try to go through here with the choke. I mean, I can go pretty much anywhere, and so I may end up for the ignition switch going through the side here. I'm not quite sure yet. I'll figure that out after. I actually don't mind having the ignition switch over here on the side, and then the choke sitting right here. The other switch is on the other side, and I'll put some kind of rubber type of large sealing barometer or something around that. Like I said, I'll again put a piece of metal in here, close that off as well, and then get it all tidied up down the road and do a quick paint on it. Like I said, I'm not looking for perfect. This thing is essentially a beater cart. I just like to have something look halfway decent and a place to have the switches. And you know, it doesn't look too far off from the original. It's definitely smaller than your original dughouse, and it doesn't look quite as good, but I think it's going to work out all right, and it should work for what I need. This didn't work out too bad. The box here, small dash, is relatively put together. I just added some support there. That's all set for the ignition switch. I'll adjust it later on. I did a larger hole to be able to bring this whole choke assembly out, and then just made this little plate here that I have on with 2 self-tappers. I can unscrew that whenever I want to, slide that up, and pull the choke assembly out, do whatever I need to. And I'll have to do that anyway when I finish doing this and paint it. But and then when I want to pull the choke assembly back in, put it in, slide it in. I'm trying to do this so if I have to get back into this, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up having to do at some point with that wiring, it's not too difficult for me to just undo a couple things and then slide the assembly up and then get to whatever I need to for the wiring, fix it, you know, either have just the 2 switches over there or 3, and then put it back together and then just screw it together. Right now I'm not going to screw it in, but later on this is going to screw into here. I will actually have a little bracket down here that this screws into this piece, and like I mentioned before, I am going to put a little small plate over this hole here just to cover that up, just so it looks halfway decent. But that's it, and it didn't come out too bad considering I'm just using waste scrap materials I have sitting around. Hey, it's a small dash, and I may even have room to put a little hula girl, one of those little bobblehead hula girls on top of there. Who knows? I mean, I got cup holders, so we're good to go. Since I got the dash working, relatively set up as to how I want it, and it is just such a cluster with all of those switches over here. It seems to me, from backtracking and figuring out where all these things go, they appear to have been for lights, backup lights possibly too, and it actually had a trailer hitch on it for some reason. I'm not sure exactly where they were going. At this point I don't care, because I'm rewiring. All I care about for this thing is the headlights work, the backup lights work, and the ignition switch works, so it can get that solenoid to work over here to make the starter / generator to function, and that basically ends up turning over the Predator motor. I'll make sure I have all the wiring I need for that Predator motor set up, and that generator I want to be able to charge the battery. All this other hacked up wiring that's in here, once I get all of the other stuff done, I am just either cutting it out or you know, butting it up, whatever, just to get rid of it. So I've got a little pull headlight switch here, all wired in now, just running off a motorcycle battery just for testing. And there are your headlights and your tail lights. Other switch over here is for backup lights only. So now we have backup lights, and that's it. I don't, like I said, don't really care much about anything else. I'm trying to make this into a more of a utility type thing for around here, and I just want to be able to see at night and see if I need to back up. Well, that's also assuming I'm going to get a reverse in this thing at some point, but it can be handy just to have the light in case I need to shine it on something. But I have a feeling at some point I'll get reverse in this thing. So that's it. I'm done for tonight. I've been out here in the garage pretty much all day, and I think it's time to give it a break on this cart. Well, she ain't perfect, but it looks pretty good. Choke knob setup is all done, works good. Here's the key. The other side, as you can see, is the switches. Those are all set up. Everything works. Here's your headlights and taillights and backup lights off that switch. Not bad. The only thing I got to do is something around here. Maybe a little bit of rubber trim or something. Although I don't know how far into this I want to get as far as making it look nice. It all depends on how well this Predator swap goes. But if the Predator swap goes really well and it runs good, I may definitely look for a G2 rear end or an E-Z-Go rear end that I can swap into this, just because I may have some other ideas for this. I'm going to talk to my daughter to see what she thinks, because many years ago I started to do a 57 and actually had a 58 first Fairlane, and the 58 was just way too bad, so I got a 57, and I was going to do a certain two-tone, and it was almost like a nice, you know, light green, kind of like a seafoam type cream, you know, type green, and white two-tone. I may end up doing this with that same paint scheme and just fixing it up halfway decent to have around here, because then if it looks nice and, you know, rides nice and drives nice, you know, my family here will use it, and it will stay here at our place in Mass. It'll be a nice little cart. But that all depends on how this turns out mechanically. But I got a feeling that this is actually going to work out pretty well. So once I get this done, I may change my tune as to having it being just a camo beast beat around to an actual decent looking vehicle that even if my wife wants to take it across to the in-laws and my daughter and they have to, you know, bring things back and forth, she can use it for that.